Well, good morning, everyone. As we look here first at the last 72 hours of total accumulated precipitation, this is going to really reveal a lot where this pattern is going. It's had some pretty amazing features here with some heavy rainfall. We'll start in Colorado. Some of these storms here have been putting down 2, 3, 4 inches of rainfall as they've been curling around the very active southwestern monsoon. If you come into the parts of Nebraska, getting into this section of Iowa, and then through Missouri yesterday, some locally very heavy rainfall coming over some of the driest parts of the central United States. But it is important to note that there has been a pretty sizable region in through here that was missed, and unfortunately the way the pattern is setting up, most of the heavy rains to come are going to be to the south of this. Now, when you move over into parts of the southeast, some scattered storms, but I put in the report today just an incredible video from Destin of this waterspout that was just offshore. Waterspouts are very common, and we typically observe somewhere between 500 and 600 of them a year across the United States. But that one that you saw, you'll see it in the report. It was just impressive. Okay, also saw some heavier rains in parts of the Carolinas up into the Appalachian Mountains. And finally, we did have that tropical system that's still working its way into the southwest monsoon. I'll come back to the tropics in a second. But to be honest, the real symptom of the pattern is actually here. Okay, it's an upper level low, the shortwave that's coming down that's going to get cut off over the Great Lakes here in the coming days. And this is going to be critical to the whole rainfall pattern across the United States and the heat that's going to be going into the west. So let's get a kind of sense of where we are. Latest update on soil moisture data. Take a close look at this. So where the rains have come through, we've seen major improvements, and I still expect to see these numbers improve even more. We have drier strips on either side of that. Take a look right here, and then getting back into the Dakotas. New England, still very, very dry compared to normal. We need to see better precipitation moving into that area. But expect to see significant changes here and in those drier pockets in parts of the southeast as we progress forward with this pattern. Another way to look at this, just to kind of put some more numbers to it, this is the last 14 days of precipitation compared to normal. And again, my biggest concern is these places here in the midsection of the country, parts of Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, that have been missed by the rains. The upcoming forecast is not favorable for this particular area. Meanwhile, just a reminder, this southwest monsoon has been impressively strong, and it's going to continue to do that. But our greatest risk of heat and drought expansion is actually going to be in the northwest with this pattern as it evolves. And this is it. This is kind of where we stand over the next several days in terms of the way this pattern evolves as we approach the middle and end of August. A broader trough will sit over much of the eastern part of the United States. It's really going to be anchored here in the Midwest and over the Great Lakes. And to the south, I'm expecting substantial amounts of rain from Texas all the way over to the mid-Atlantic on the base of this trough where the fronts will linger. Meanwhile, we agree with what's going on in the National Weather Service with their forecast suggesting more chances of what we call rapid onset of drought or flash drought, plus some bouts of heat this week and into next week we got to keep a close eye on. And I just want to make a point here. We do need to be watching the tropics very carefully for some homegrown systems in here that kind of form on the lingering edge of these frontal boundaries as they come through. But let's go through and see what this is going to deliver. Okay, so playing here the high-res NAM model. Now you can just see that front continuing to sag, and by this afternoon we just see a lot of storms, scattered storms through this entire section of the country. There is a system pulling just off the coast here that's going to be bringing some rain to the very dry parts of New England here, but it's not a widespread event once you get back into the interior of New England. Playing in the overnight hours and then into Thursday, the big feature I'm watching is actually this one here. If you just rock back and forth, you can, let's try that again. There you go. You can see the circulation with that upper level shortwave. And that's going to be the feature that cuts off over the Great Lakes once we get in toward this weekend, delivering scattered rainfall to a broad area here, while fronts linger farther to the south. By the way, the latest model runs did pick up on a little wave that's going to be moving out of Nevada, possibly heading up toward the Pacific Northwest. I'm going to watch this one carefully because the last time this happened, we had some hail that came out of this, and hail damage this time of year, hail damage any time of the year is bad, but this time of year I want to watch out for it pretty carefully. So we just distill this down into 2 weeks here. This is the next 7 days, okay? So the upper level low comes down and sets up here while there's a lingering frontal boundary that stretches back into this area. Plenty of Gulf moisture, much above average rains in through this whole section while the southwest monsoon continues to crank. There'll be drier air kind of wedging its way in the backside of this, and that's what you see in this particular plot. Into week 2, the models just continue to leave that whole pattern in place. So there's a ridge here, a broader trough in place. That's why there continues to be wetter conditions as we look out there into that last week of August. Now, what's interesting about this, again, is that the models are not picking up on any major surges of tropical systems. We are keeping an eye out on this potential development here, but National Hurricane Center in their 8 a.m. update still kept it at a 20% chance of developing as these storms come off of Central America and eventually get into the Bay of Campeche. But it seems as though activity is starting to pick up coming off the west coast of Africa. And so therefore, I'm going to watch 3 areas. One will be here, 2 will be there, and the third one will be coming off the west coast of Africa as we go forward in this forecast. From here, let's talk about temperatures, because we continue to see widespread heat advisories, excessive heat warnings, and then today, National Weather Service increased an area of red flag warnings for this part of the West Coast. And that's because the temperatures are really going to be cranking here. By the way, something I'm getting very concerned about in this area where we've seen some very heavy rainfall, more fog, we've had extended hours of leaf wetness in this region. And as a result of that, combined with cloud cover, recent rainfall, we saw it here at the beginning. This is an area that I think is quite ripe for tar spot. I want to be watching that very carefully. It's kind of meeting all the criteria for that, and given the issues we're having this morning, whoops, sorry about that, there we go, with fog in this area, it tells me we've had extended time period of wet conditions. So just something to think about here. But as we go forward with this temperature forecast, take a look at this. Very hot up the west coast today, but the front is sagging and finally brings in cooler weather to this part of the southern plains. This is Thursday's high temperatures getting into Friday, then into Saturday and Sunday. So a lot of upper 90s, low 100s into the weekend here, but much of the central part of the country, a big section, is going to be seeing some cooler weather, while we get some above average temperatures regaining position in New England. But how long does this last? Well, here's the newest data from the European Ensemble. We're going to look out here all the way out to day 5 through 10. That gets us out to the 27th of August, and then working our way into the beginning of September. The models keep that pattern around. Now, is this La Nina-like? I guess you could say that it is, in that we have this trough that's hanging off of the southern coast of Alaska. But it's interesting to see the ridge really back up to the west, given its tendency to stay in the midsection of the country for so long this summer. All right, from here, please read the report. I give a special kind of in-depth look at what we expect for South America and some of the uncertainties, because lately the La Nina resurgence here with those ocean temperatures have come back down to about 1 degree Celsius below normal are going to be critical for the start of the monsoon. You see all the long-range models and the analogs seen over here favor drier conditions in southern Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay, and Argentina, while a more rapid start to the monsoon north. What's interesting about this is, while this is the long-range forecast, the sub-seasonal models don't necessarily agree with that same pattern. They're keeping the driest conditions closer to Argentina and wetter conditions farther to the north. And in the report, I talk about if this forecast verifies how important it is for a rapid start to the planting season in South America after September 15. But I am concerned, does this last into October? Oops. If it lasts into October, that is going to be very important. If it doesn't, and the monsoon has fits and starts to the beginning here, it could really be problematic for the South American crop. So we're going to watch it. I'll report back to you again. Appreciate your attention today. Thanks.